Hello, welcome back to my channel, Sunshine Lorena. So today is going to be my July wrap up. These are the physical books I read. I still have some other ones for ebooks and audiobooks as well. And yeah, another month has went by. Can you believe it? Like, it's just, yeah, I can't believe it. This year going so fast. So we're gonna be wrapping up July, all the books I read. July was a much better reading month. So in my last wrap up at the end of June, I included a couple of books from May that I read. So there was 2, June I read 4, and July I read 8. So I'm kind of getting back to my old reading habits. I've definitely come out of the slump that I was going through, which is great. So at the start of July, I started off with some books for Summerween. So I have 2 vlogs up on my channel that you can go and watch. I'll link if you want to actually see me talk about the books in depth. So I'm not going to speak about them too much because I did speak about them a lot in those vlogs. So the first one I finished during Summerween was Sour Candy, and that's by Keelan Patrick Burke. It is a horror novella. It's not much I can say without actually, giving too much away. So yeah, there's this man. I mean, the description of it was there's this man and his son, and they're doing things together, but it seems like he gives in to the son too much. Gives the son too much things he wants. They look like a normal father and son pairing. But yes, twist is it's not his son. He's actually been held hostage. And I can't say much more than that. Yeah, very short. It was around about 100 pages or so, so it's a novella, and I gave it 4 stars. It was great. It was creepy a little bit, not too much. I think it was really well done. Then I read Home Before Dark, and that's by Riley Sager. It's my first book by him, and this is like a thriller horror. It gets classified as. It has those haunted house vibes. I ended up giving it a 4 star, and I did really enjoy it being my first book by him, and I think those elements were done really well in it. So our main character, Maggie, inherits this house from her father. They did briefly live there when she was 6 for, I want to say 6 weeks or something. It was not a long time, but they ended up fleeing in the middle of the night. Her dad and her mum, they fled in the middle of the night, and then her dad later wrote a book about the experiences of the house and that it was haunted and there was all these things going on, and becomes a bestseller, the book, and it's it's haunted her throughout her life. She was associated with her father's book. Her mother and father got divorced. That house, the book, everything, it's all linked together. And yes, she inherits the house, and she decides to go back to renovate it so that she can then sell it, that's what she does with her partner, her friend, their partners. Yeah, they flip houses. So that's what she wants to do. But while she's there, things start happening, and it's a case of she's never believed anything her father wrote, but things are happening, and it's her kind of trying to work out, was there any truth in what her father wrote? Or did he just make it all up? And yes, you can have to work that out as you read through the story. There is another mystery that is introduced into it as well, but it's not in the description, so I'm not going to say what that is because that was a really good surprise, I thought. So yeah, really enjoyed it, and I definitely want to pick up more of Riley Sager's books. And I did see on Kindle deals in the UK this month, Lock Every Door is on there, so I think I'm going to pick that up and read it at some point, because my ebook TBR is out of control. Let's not discuss that. So the next one that I read during Summerween was Rosemary's Baby, which I have here. So I read Rosemary's Baby. It was written in the 60s. It's considered a classic horror book. It's been adapted in the film. I've never watched the film, and I still haven't watched it since reading this. Again, 4 star. I mean, Summerween did, I think I was successful Summerween. I got some really great rated books. But in case you don't know what this is about, there's this couple in New York, a an apartment comes up in this building, and Rosemary, like, you know, always wanted to live there. So it comes up, they get offered it, and they take it. However, they do discover that the building is actually notorious for things happening to residents, odd goings on, and it's been going like for like years and years. So it's not quite as like perfect as Rosemary thinks it is. So they move into the building, you know, they meet the neighbours are like friendly and interested, and they do start speaking to people, and then her husband lands this great role. He's an actor, is like perfect, and then she gets pregnant, and then the neighbours start taking a very particular interest in them and Rosemary and her well-being and the baby, and that is all I'm gonna say. And it gets creepy and weird and things go on, and yes, I really enjoyed it. I have seen that there's like a sequel to this, it's like Rosemary's Son or something I think it's called, but the reviews aren't that great, but I'm still intrigued and I kind of want to see where it goes on from the end of the story. But yes, I think it's a great classic kind of creepy horror-ish novel. And then the last one that I read or like finished during Summerween, I was going to say Halloween then, during Summerween, was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This was my first book that I've ever read by an Indigenous author, the first one by Stephen Graham Jones, and again, 4 stars, successful. I definitely want to check out some of his other books, but this was a horror novel that he wrote and came out, I think it was around October last year, maybe it was a little bit in summer, I'm not too sure. Yes, it's a horror. It was a very different style of horror book than what I've previously read, and I did enjoy those elements of him weaving in Indigenous culture and specific tribes and things that I didn't personally know. Yeah. So for me, I found that really great. So in this one, we have 4 main characters, and there is 4 men, and like 10 years before, there was this hunting trip they went on. Something happened, and it was 10 years later, and they're being haunted, and some revenge is going on, and things are happening. It's like 10 years later of this event, and it's come back to haunt them. It's come back to haunt them. That's all I'm going to say. Again, don't want to give too much information because I didn't know that much going into it, and I think that was perfect, not knowing that much. So yeah, 4 stars. Enjoyed it. Very successful start to July. Then I picked up one which I'd been wanting to pick up for a while. I had been putting it off because I didn't want to see the end of the series, but I knew it was time. And yes, I was sad to say goodbye to these wonderful characters, and I'm speaking about the 4th and final book in the Neapolitan Quartet, and that is The Story of the Lost Child by Elena Ferrante. So yeah, there's 4 books. It starts off with My Brilliant Friend, which you may have heard. It's a series of literary fiction novels. I'm not going to tell you the plot of this because obviously that would mean me ruining the previous one, so I'm just going to sum up how it starts. The whole series follows Elena, who is actually our narrator, and Elena, who gets called Linu, and then there's Leela, her friend, her best friend, and the start of the very first book is Leela disappears and her son phones Elena, Linu, and she decides to sit down and write the story of their lives, their friendship. Their friendship is at times, I'd say toxic actually. It's kind of toxic at times. They're not always friends, you know. It's a complicated friendship, but they are very much characters of their circumstances. It is set in Napoli, and it's in a neighbourhood that is on the outskirts. People are not well off in general. They're poor. They're struggling. It starts off in the 50s, you know, education isn't seen as such a big thing that people have to go for. And then yes, the treatment as they're girls, how they're treated throughout it as well. So yes, there is this whole, you know, being educated, not being educated thing, the differences in money you see, the circumstances they live in, the violence that's in their neighbourhood, the violence that comes into their lives from all these different angles, and it's just a beautiful series. I was glad, you know, we got more Leela in this, because in the third one I felt like I did enjoy it, but there just wasn't enough Leela, and she is the, I don't know how to say the villain, but she's not like, she is the object of the books, you know, because it is Lenu that's writing her friendship about her. And then the fact that she was missing quite a bit in the last one, I missed that to and froing between them, you know, the back and forth, how they push and pull. I'm literally saying the same things, how like they, you know, they push each other to be better. There's always like some sort of competition between them, and yes, I missed that in the third one, but this one, yes. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. It didn't quite hit that 5-star feeling that I got with the second one, which was the story of a new name. That one, yeah, the best out of the series. But yeah, so first 4, second 5, third 4, and this 4.5. So yeah, it's a great series. It's a really great series, and I think it's one that you should definitely check out. And then I did there's a reading vlog for the next 2 books, and I I realised that I'd fallen behind on my 20 books I wanted to read from the Rory Gilmore list, and also classics. So this is a combination of those 2 things. However, the first one's not a classic. The first one is Entombment by Ian McEwan, and yeah, so this was the first one I picked up. It's one that I have had on my shelves forever. As you can see, this is the movie edition, and I bought this when that was basically out, because yeah, I bought this brand new. So that's how long it's been on my shelves. And in my defense, for the last like 4 or so years, it had been at my parents' house, and I, you know, didn't have the book. But on the other hand, I didn't feel inclined to pick it up when I returned, you know. So I ended up giving this 3 stars, and you know, I go through in detail in the vlog obviously all my feelings, but essentially I felt like that first, okay, actually I'm going to read the synopsis before I get into that, because that'll make more sense. So we have 3 main characters in this. There is Cecilia, and then there is Robbie, the childhood friend, and then there's Bryony, who's Cecilia's little sister. So they're at like university age, and Bryony is like 12, 13, around that age. And on this one particular day, and this is what takes part, this is the first half of the novel, is in 1935, and yes, Bryony witnesses a scene between Cecilia and Robbie outside in the fountain, and her mind starts running around on that, and then there's something else that happens later on in that day, a couple of things that end up leading to her telling a story about something that happened, and basically changing their lives forever. It completely changes the 3 of their lives forever, what she believes she saw, what she tells people she saw, and it's these 3 incidents basically. And yes, it's, you know, how her imagination takes her to that point. And yes, so then she is trying to atone for that. So then it jumps forward 5 years. It's during the war. Robbie's a soldier, obviously. Cecilia's a nurse, and Bryony's 18 and also went into nursing. And I'm not going to say too much more about it. And then it's, yeah, her trying to atone. And one of the reasons why I didn't get on with it to begin with was the fact that the first half is that one day. So you're waiting, building to this moment that it tells you in the back of the, you know, on the synopsis. And yeah, I just felt it just went on a little bit too long, and probably because I've seen the film a couple of times, I felt like that first bit went a lot quicker. But I still think it was good, well written. I just felt like it dragged out a little bit. So yeah, that's it. 3 stars. And then I did pick up this other book, but in that reading vlog, but I finished another one in between. Yeah, okay. I'm a little bit all over the place today. So then the next one that I finished, and it was on audiobook, is The Hole, and it's by Hai Young Poon. I probably not pronounced that correctly, and I'm sorry. I will try and be better. Yeah, so it's The Hole, which is described as the Korean Misery. So that's Misery by Stephen King. So it was a very short audiobook. I'm listening to an audiobook. It's quite short, but yes, it's like a psychological thriller, it gets described as. And yes, our main character ends up being in a coma after being in a car accident that took his wife's life, and he ends up being kind of like paralysed and like disfigured, and then his mother-in-law ends up being his carer. And then it's kind of the story of how she's supposed to be caring for him, but she's not really caring for him. And I don't want to go into too much details because I don't want to ruin it. But yes, it's described as the Korean Misery. And if you know what Misery is about, you kind of get the idea that he's kind of stuck in this house, in this bed. And it's just kind of, his mother-in-law's like treatment of him and lots of things happening. But yes, it was short. It was creepy. I did really enjoy it. And obviously holes are involved in this, and I didn't know too much about that before going into it, so I'm not going to tell you. But yes, I gave it a 3.5. I thought it was short, quick, creepy. Yeah, enjoyed it. Yes, the next one that I finished, and the last one I read in July, was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And yes, classic, one of the 10 classics I wanted to read in 2021. Finally got to it, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I gave it 4.5. Didn't quite hit the 5-star marker for me, but if you don't know anything about this was written in like 1938. It's like kind of like a classic kind of thriller, like romantic thriller kind of vibes. Yeah, that's what I'd say. And I love a good thriller, in case you don't know. So yeah, so we have our main character, who is the new Mrs. De Winter. Now, you never find out what her first name is, and it's kind of playing into this narrative. Thank you for finally saying it properly. Narrative, that Rebecca, who it was the previous Miss De Winter who's passed away, is kind of like haunting and imposing on their lives. So the husband is Maxim De Winter. He meets our newest winter in the south of France when she is a lady's companion. So essentially this woman is paying her to travel around with her and keep her company. And yes, that's the woman ends up getting sick, and she, the new Mrs. De Winter, ends up meeting Maxim, and they end up forming this bond. It's a very quick kind of rapid courtship, and they end up he ends up proposing to her, which I'm not going to get into that. It wasn't like a great proposal, guys. Like, anyway, they get married and they go back to Manderley, which is his house. And you've probably heard that famous line of, "Last night I dreamt that we went back to Manderley," which is the very first line in this. And yes, so they go back, and she's very much over her head. She is a very humble, she comes from humble origins, and he has this big kind of country house, there's staff, everything. She's a bit over her head, but it's very obvious that everyone loved Rebecca and previous staff, like the housekeeper, etc. And Rebecca very much is still in control. Even though she's passed away, she's very much still in control, and it's kind of haunting and dictating their lives. And I don't want to say anything more than that. The novel takes a good twist and goes to a place that I didn't think it would go to. And yes, I really enjoyed it, and it's a great classic. I think it's a great easy classic if it's not something that you tend to pick up. If you're a fan of thrillers, I think you'll enjoy this. Yes, that is it. That was the last one of the month. 8 books. I think I did really well, and a great reading month. August, I have some great plans. I do have an August TBR up on my channel if you want to check that out and see what I'm reading. And yeah, I'm just hoping that it's going to be as good. August. Fingers crossed. And yeah, let me know what you read in July. Did you have a good reading month? Yeah, what's your favourites? And yes, thank you very much for watching this. Comment, like, subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.